All right. Great pleasure. Joining me now, Ohio Senator Rob Portman, member of the Foreign Relations Committee and former OMB director. So he gets to talk about all our topics. First of all, Senator Portman, thank you for coming on. You are a star.
Very great to be on with you.
You're a star in yesterday's Sunday talk shows. And I just wanted to I've not been a big fan of Mr. Biden in general, nor have I liked his foreign policy. But I'm willing to cut him some slack, Senator Portman, on one sentence. All right, one sentence. What do you make of that? Everyone's coming down on his head. It had just a little bit of Reagan-esque to it.
Well, what I said yesterday is all of us think the world would be a better place without Vladimir Putin. But, Larry, knowing that he was overcome with emotion, I get it, because he had just met with refugees that day. But we have had for a long time this fight with Russia where they're saying the reason NATO exists is to topple our government. The reason we're supporting Ukraine is we want to topple the Russian government. It's propaganda. Nothing could be further from the truth. Ukraine just wants to live in peace, as you know. They have no offensive interest at all, and NATO is strictly a defensive pact. So that's the issue, is that it gives the propagandists in Moscow the ability to say, aha, we were right all along. This is about regime change. But it doesn't mean that any of us have any sympathy for Putin if we make that point. So, look, I think he was overcome with emotion. I was with those refugees, as you know, a couple weeks ago in Poland on the border with Ukraine. It's amazing. You know, they just, in tears, tell you about the horrors of war, tell you about their home being destroyed, tell you about their men being left behind to fight, and they don't know, what their status is. And they also say, help us more, help us more.
Senator, without disagreeing with you about your analysis of regime change, I will say this. I think you would agree, but I want to, see what you're saying exactly. Mm-hmm. As long as Vladimir Putin is president of Russia, he's going to come back, no matter what deal. And I want to ask you about peace deals in Ukraine, but he's not going to let go. We will see more of him, and we could see more of his threats to NATO. So I know it's not our official government policy of regime change. I'm not sure what my own views would be if I were in the government or not. I guess you have to take it one step at a time, end the fighting in Ukraine first. But Senator, I think you would agree, as long as Putin is there, A, he will continue to be a war criminal. B, he will still threaten the Ukraine and other territories next to the Ukraine. And C, he will continue to steal from the Russian people, whether it's $700 million yachts or whatever.
And he'll continue to make trouble for us all around the world, including in the Middle East, with what's going on in Syria, backing up Iran, what's going on in Venezuela, where they have plenty of intelligence troops. So look, he's a bad guy. My hope, maybe I'm naive, is that if we have the rest of the world join us on these sanctions and they really work, that at some point the Russian people say, wait a minute, and certainly the people who support him the most, which is this elite, the oligarchs so-called, say, wait a minute, you talked about the $700 million yacht, which we should seize, by the way, and provide those funds to help these refugees. But at some point, these people are saying, well, wait a minute, I can't leave Russia. I can't show my face anywhere. My money's being taken away from me, even out of Swiss banks that I thought were safe. At some point, you would hope that the people of Russia, or at least the elites, would say, this is time for Vladimir Putin to go. So that's, I think, the way you would hope it would happen. And again, getting back to that statement, you and I don't disagree with it, nor do most people in America, I would think. On the other hand, you don't want to give the propagandists the ability to say, aha, this is what America and NATO and Ukraine was up to all along. And that might help him to strengthen his support rather than weaken his support. Our job is to weaken his support.
All right. Well, you're closer to it and the intel than I am. I just, Senator, I don't want the U.S. to be intimidated by Vladimir Putin. And I frankly think that on the whole, up until maybe that one statement, but that's just one statement, that Joe Biden has been intimidated, and I think the Biden administration has been intimidated. And I just want to go back to the Brussels press conference, which I found so disappointing. There's no sanctions on energy, no sanctions on secondary banking, like your colleague Pat Toomey has been, I think, correctly calling for, or escrow, escrow bank accounts. So if you buy energy, you don't pay to Russia. Nothing about the MiGs, nothing about the S-300s. And really slow walking some military supplies. And also, Senator Portman, I've never really heard Biden say he thinks the Ukrainians can and should win the war. I mean, there's some things, it looks like, the Ukrainians have kind of stopped the Russians out.
Yeah, instead of talking about what we can't do, we should be talking about how we're going to win, how we're going to help Ukraine to be able to win this war. And you're right. I mean, they have been extraordinarily brave on the battlefield, really much more resolute than the Putin military ever thought was possible. So he miscalculated badly there. He also miscalculated, I think, on NATO coming together. I think he saw how weak we were with Nord Stream 2 and so on. So we've made some progress, but not enough. You're right. And by the way, on energy, Larry, this is the single most important issue because, as you know, more than half of their exports are energy. Between 40 and 50% of their budget is paid for only by energy receipts coming into the country. So this is the big one. And we're doing a good job here now. Finally, the administration changed its view, as you know. Initially, they were not for banning Russian oil. Then they agreed to it. Also coal, also natural gas. That's good. But we're a relatively small player in this. We did not take a lot of Russian energy. These other countries, including Germany, are very dependent on Russian energy. So we got to get them in a position where they will take our LNG, our liquefied natural gas, in exchange for cutting off these receipts to the Putin war machine, because that's the big one. That's the big one. And there's some countries like China we're not going to be able to affect much. We can certainly affect Europe, and we can certainly help them in terms of providing energy that's in the ground here in America, can be produced more cleanly, actually, and sent over as LNG for them.
I really like, Senator Toomey's idea of secondary banking sanctions.
Yeah, it's very effective. And what it says, in essence, is you're not just sanctioning the bank, but even does business with the bank. And I think that's a great idea. We also need to tighten up the energy financial sanctions in particular, because recall there was a date of June 24th attached to those. The transactions until June 24th would be allowed to proceed. June 24th may be too late, so we need to tighten those sanctions up as it relates to energy in particular.
That's a great point. People forget that. You're really a couple months away from even stopping this so-called import and applying those sanctions. Thank you for that.
But energy is where the action is. I mean, that's where the big money's coming to pay for the war machine.
Senator Portman, as a former OMB budget director, I just want to ask you if you had any early thoughts. Joe Biden is a capitalist. He just thinks that wealthy people, successful people don't pay any taxes. He wants income leveling. And he's sticking with, I love this particularly, he's sticking with this, this wealth tax on unrealized capital gains. So I say, save America, kill the bill. What you think about this? It's like a repeat here, a repeat.
Yeah, for sure. And my concern is they'll try to run it through reconciliation as they've done in the past. And that means you don't need any Republican votes. So we've got to make our points and be sure that everybody realizes what's going on here. By the way, Larry, as a former senior director at OMB, you would appreciate the fact that this budget is exactly twice as big as the budget that I put out when I was OMB director, twice as big, and far, far bigger than the one you put out in the Reagan administration. But look, he's also got, if you look at the numbers, they just don't make sense. Inflation this year, 2.9%.
Yeah.
Now, I wish it was going to be 2.9%. That would be fantastic. But he did it to try to make his numbers look better. As you know, we're at a 40-year high right now, more like 7.9%. So it's not going to be 2.9%. I wish it were. 2.3% for next year. They're projecting. That's awfully optimistic. So I think the budget itself is based on numbers. The foundation is going to crumble. And then with regard to the taxing, in America, you get taxed when you sell something. You get taxed when you make income. But people who are invested, particularly in capital assets, which is counterinflationary, to grow capital assets, would be taxed under this budget for none of that. And it would be very hard to figure out what the tax would be. But yeah, I would get it if you said, okay, we're going to raise, the income tax or raise the capital gains tax. But these are not taxable events they're talking about. And so again, it's kind of a pie in the sky budget in that sense.
Even the European socialists finally rejected these crazy wealth taxes. But Senator Portman, in the remaining moments, I think we saved America and killed the bill. But I just want to know, is all that, I have not read the details of the budget, is all that BBB social spending and Green New Deal spending in his budget? Because when you talk about passage by reconciliation, I do get a little nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concern. There is an increase in spending for the entitlements, of course, that is out of congressional control and his control until we reform them. But most of this is discretionary spending increases. The one place that he does increase spending that I think is absolutely necessary right now is in defense.
Yes.
It's almost 10%. So if he's assuming inflation is going to be, which it won't, but 2.9% this year and 2.3% next year, that is an increase above inflation. And so that's one thing that we can use in our argument we're going to have again with the Democrats, where they always want to increase social spending and decrease defense spending, and we try to keep them, on a parity. So that's one thing that I thought was positive, because that enables us to invest in the kind of longer-term projects, research, and so on, to keep a qualitative edge. And I think this whole Russian attack has made us think again about, the fact this is a dangerous, volatile world. And to keep the peace, we've got to have the best. Ronald Reagan said it best. You get peace through strength. And so I think that's the best part of the budget, is the defense spending.
Know what else I liked that the Gipper said, sir? We win, they lose.
Yeah.
Really, love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Rob Portman. We appreciate your time, sir, very, very much.
Always good to be on with you, pal. Take care.
Right.